Close your eyes for just a moment. I want you to imagine an early spring morning.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to start.
Right. The air outside has that crisp, cool quality that just immediately wakes you up.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the beginning of the spring season, which is a transitional period known in ancient traditions as Chaitra.
Yeah, exactly.
You catch the rich, earthy scent of incense drifting through the air from a nearby home. But beyond those sensory details, there's a palpable atmosphere to this time of year.
There really is.
It's that unmistakable, almost electric feeling of a reset, the slate being wiped completely clean.
It's a very vivid image. And that visceral feeling of a reset, it isn't just poetic, it's actually a deeply ingrained psychological mechanism.
Which is exactly what we're digging into today. We're
Right.
unpacking the stack of research and notes that you, our listener, shared with us. And what's so compelling about this material is how it takes a thousands of years old tradition and maps it flawlessly onto the bleeding edge of modern science.
I mean, when I first looked at the sources, pairing an ancient spiritual festival with the architecture of machine learning seemed like a massive leap.
Yeah, it sounds almost like science fiction at first.
I mean, it really does. But as you dig into the mechanics of it, you realize that these ancient human rituals were essentially early forms of software updates for the human brain.
Wow, software updates.
Yeah, they were systematically designed to optimize our neural pathways, our focus, and our behavior.
And since you are always looking to upgrade your mental operating system and perhaps master some nuanced English concepts along the way, this deep dive is going to be incredibly relevant for you.
Absolutely.
We're setting out to answer some foundational questions today, like why do humans fundamentally crave rituals like fasting? What is actually happening in the brain when we do? And how does the structure of a 9-day spiritual festival mirror the way a modern supercomputer learns to think?
By analyzing the psychology embedded in these rituals, alongside the science of how machines process information, we uncover some highly actionable frameworks for our own lives.
We're basically translating ancient cultural code into modern cognitive tools.
That's a great way to put it.
So let's jump right into the psychology of the fresh start. In behavioral science, there is a heavily researched phenomenon literally called the fresh start effect.
Yes, very famous concepts.
And I know you, listening to this, have experienced it. I certainly have. Why do I always tell myself that I'll start my new fitness routine on a Monday?
Right.
Or why is it that the gym is packed to the absolute brim on January 1st, but it's a ghost town by February 15th?
Oh, we've all been there. It's so common. And the reason we consistently do this is that human memory and motivation heavily rely on what psychologists term temporal landmarks.
Temporal landmark, so a landmark in time rather than a physical space.
Exactly. Our brains use these temporal landmarks to sort of partition our identity. They act as a psychological firewall.
Firewall, okay.
Yeah, the brain essentially says, okay, before this date, that was the old me. The old me procrastinates and eats terrible food. But after this date, that's the new me, and the new me is disciplined.
That makes so much sense.
It allows us to psychologically distance ourselves from our past failures, and incredibly, it restores our confidence to try again.
That firewall concept completely reframes how I look at Chaitra Navratri, because according to the source material, this festival isn't just a random week.
No, not at all.
It serves as the Lunar New Year. So it is the ultimate temporal landmark built right into the calendar.
Right.
During this time, people don't just celebrate, they do a massive deep cleaning of their homes. They prepare for a core ritual called Gatastapana.
And we should probably clarify what Gatastapana actually entails, for those who might not know.
Please do.
Because the physical act mirrors the psychological one perfectly. It involves invoking the energy of the goddess into a kalash or a sacred pot, often accompanied by the sowing of barley seeds in the soil.
Sowing seeds, so it's very tied to nature.
Yes, it is a literal, tangible representation of planting new life and setting new intentions.
Right, so when someone is sweeping the floors, clearing out the clutter, and setting up this sacred space, they aren't just doing household chores.
Definitely not. They are engaging in a process of cognitive offloading and environmental signaling.
Environmental signaling.
Yeah, by physically altering their environment, they are giving their brain a definitive, undeniable signal. The past cycle is officially closed. The future begins right now.
You're constructing that firewall between the old habits and the new trajectory.
Precisely.
Which brings up a term from the notes that I think is crucial to isolate here. And it's a great vocabulary word for our listeners. Momentum.
Oh yes, Momentum.
It's a word we throw around a lot in English, but psychologically, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting in this context.
It really is.
Uh-huh.
Momentum is essentially the strength or force gained by motion or by a series of events.
Getting the ball rolling, basically.
Exactly. From a behavioral standpoint, getting started is always the hardest part because of friction. But once you utilize a temporal landmark, like Navratri, to initiate a change, once you clean the house and set the intention, you generate psychological momentum.
So the initial push requires immense willpower, but keeping the ball rolling requires significantly less.
Exactly. The ritual engineers the momentum for you.
I think that's a brilliant challenge for you, our listener, to consider right now. If your brain were a computer, and you could utilize the momentum of this spring season to highlight just one obsolete habit and hit delete, what file are you trashing?
That's a great question to reflect on.
Because clearing that space is step one. But what really caught my attention in the research is step two.
The discipline required to actually write the new code.
Yes. This is where we transition from merely setting intentions to the mechanics of cognitive training. A central pillar of this 9-day festival is the practice of fasting, known as RAT.
Right. And this is a very misunderstood concept today.
It is, because if you're looking at this from a purely secular modern perspective, fasting just looks like self-deprivation. It looks like you're just arbitrarily making yourself hungry and miserable for 9 days.
Which is a fundamental misunderstanding of what is neurologically occurring. The neuroscience surrounding fasting reveals that it is an intense form of cognitive training.
Cognitive training.
Yes. Fasting is essentially a resistance workout for your brain's executive function.
Okay, let's break that down for me. How does skipping a meal equate to a brain workout? It sounds strange.
It comes down to the prefrontal cortex. That's the region of the brain responsible for complex decision-making, impulse control, and focusing attention.
The logic center, essentially.
Right. When you are fasting, your biological drives are going to send craving signals. You will want a snack. Your brain will try to convince you to break the rules.
Oh, absolutely. The cravings get intense.
But every single time you feel that impulse and consciously override it, every time you say no, you are firing and wiring the neural pathways in your prefrontal cortex.
You are actively thickening the neural density in the exact area of the brain that dictates your overall willpower.
Exactly. It's like lifting weights, but for your self-control.
So you're saying that by denying a minor craving for a sweet during Navratri, you're actually building the mental infrastructure needed to make massive, high-stakes decisions in your career or personal life months later.
That is the direct neurological translation, yes. And we desperately need that infrastructure today.
Because of our phones.
Yes, because our prefrontal cortex is currently under constant, relentless siege. We are living in an era of engineered dopamine addiction.
The notifications, the endless scrolling.
These algorithms are designed to fracture our attention. We are habituated to saying yes to thousands of tiny, meaningless micro-distractions every single day.
Which leaves our attention span completely shattered. But the notes argue that by committing to the strict parameters of a 9-day ritual, we essentially mute that noise.
We force a specific kind of focus.
Right. And that leads to what psychologists call the flow state.
Yes, the flow state. This is a term coined by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. It describes a state of transient hypofrontality.
Transient hypofrontality. That is quite a mouthful for our language learners. What does that actually mean?
I know, it's a very technical term.
Yeah.
But it's just a fancy way of saying the inner critic in your brain shuts off.
Okay.
And you become so deeply immersed in an activity that time just distorts. You lose your sense of self, you forget to check your phone, and you operate at absolute peak performance.
It's that feeling when you're working on something and suddenly 3 hours have passed and you didn't even notice.
Exactly. That's slow.
But getting into that state requires parameters. And here is where the source material makes this incredible pivot into artificial intelligence.
This is my favorite part of the research.
Me too. Because we tend to think of human flow states and computer processing as complete opposites. But the AI research you shared relies heavily on a concept called constraints.
Yes, constraints. This is one of the most counterintuitive aspects of machine learning. Well, you would logically assume that if you were building an AI, you want to give it absolute freedom. Give it access to the entire internet, remove all boundaries, and let it figure things out.
Right, more data is better, right?
You'd think so.
Yeah.
But when you do that, the AI model actually degrades. It gets lost in its own data. It starts hallucinating.
Hallucinating, like making things up.
Yes. In AI, hallucinating means it confidently invents false information. It becomes paralyzed by infinite possibilities.
Wait, so you're saying that by intentionally restricting the AI's options, you actually increase its capability? That feels completely backward.
It feels backward, but it's foundational to computer science. When engineers apply strict constraints, when they define rigid parameters and say you can only pull data from these specific sources, or you must follow this exact formatting rule, the AI suddenly becomes exponentially more powerful.
Wow.
The constraints force the system to optimize its processing power. The rules don't trap the AI, they focus it.
I am fascinated by that parallel, because that is the exact mechanism of human rituals. When we impose strict constraints on ourselves during Navratri, saying, I will only eat these specific foods, or I will perform this exact meditation at dawn, we usually view it as limiting our freedom.
Right. We think of it as a burden.
But neurobiologically, we are doing what a software engineer does to an AI. We are applying constraints to eliminate the paralysis of choice, thereby freeing up our cognitive bandwidth to reach a flow state.
It's a flawless synthesis. The ancient architects of these rituals understood intuitively what modern computer scientists are discovering empirically.
That intelligence, whether biological or artificial, requires boundaries to reach its highest potential.
Exactly.
That perfectly sets up the third major concept from the notes. We've talked about the temporal landmark of the fresh start and the cognitive constraints of fasting. Let's dive into the imagery and the structure of the festival itself.
The 9 forms of the goddess.
Yes. Over these 9 days, the tradition focuses on 9 distinct avatars or forms of the goddess Durga.
These aren't just varying aesthetic depictions. It's not just art for the sake of art. Each of the 9 forms is highly specific, engineered with distinct iconography. They hold different weapons, ride different animals, wear specific colors, and embody completely different psychological states.
For instance, the material points out Mata Shailputri, the first form, who represents absolute foundational strength and grounding.
Yes.
And then you have Mata Brahmatrini on the second day, who represents intense penance, dedication, and the relentless pursuit of wisdom. But why 9 separate forms? Why not just one overarching concept of the divine?
Because of how the human brain processes complex information, humans are uniquely driven by symbols.
Symbols, another great vocabulary word.
Yes. And a symbol is not just a picture. It is a highly compressed piece of cognitive shorthand. It bypasses the slow analytical part of the brain and speaks directly to our emotional and psychological centers.
Let's clarify how that actually works for the listener. If you see an image of a lion, your brain doesn't just process the biological data of a large feline predator. Instantly, without you even trying, your brain unpacks the concepts of courage, royalty, ferocity, and danger.
It all hits you at once.
The lion is the compressed file, the symbol that contains all those abstract ideas.
Precisely. Now, contrast that with how artificial intelligence perceives the world.
Okay.
If you feed an image of a lion into a neural network, it feels absolutely nothing. It doesn't recognize courage. It doesn't even actually see a lion the way we do.
It just sees data.
Right. It relies entirely on pattern recognition. It breaks the image down into millions of pixels, analyzes the edges, the textures, and the color gradients, and runs a probability matrix to determine that the mathematical pattern of those pixels correlates to the label lion.
So human intelligence leverages profound symbolic meaning, while artificial intelligence relies on cold mathematical pattern recognition.
Exactly.
But the source material makes this brilliant argument that these two processes are actually merging during this festival.
They are. When practitioners spend 9 days meditating on these 9 distinct forms of the divine, moving from concepts of creation to fierce protection to profound transformation and ultimate knowledge, they are engaging in their own ancient form of pattern recognition.
They're recognizing the recurring patterns of the natural world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Life is not linear. It operates on cyclical patterns. Spring turns to winter and back to spring. Old structures have to be dismantled to build new ones.
Right.
Moments of crisis require the fierce energy of protection, while moments of growth require the quiet energy of penance. By systematically focusing on these 9 archetypes, you are literally training your subconscious to recognize and navigate the deeper patterns of human existence.
It's almost as if you were auditing the algorithms of your own life.
Yes.
And to make sure we are really cementing the vocabulary here, the word algorithm is perfect for this. We hear it constantly regarding social media, but at its core, an algorithm is simply a finite sequence of rigorous instructions used to solve a specific problem.
Right. Just as a search engine uses an algorithm to sort through billions of websites to find exactly what you need, These ancient rituals function as human algorithms.
Human algorithms. I love that.
They are a specific, tested sequence of psychological and physical steps, cleaning, fasting, focusing on symbols, designed to produce a highly specific mental outcome.
Which raises the ultimate question for you, our listener. Are the algorithms currently running in your life intentional, or are they just running on autopilot?
That is the true value of a temporal landmark like Chaitra Navratri. It forces a hard system reboot so you can actually look at the code.
So as we synthesize all this, how do we practically apply this deep dive today?
Based on the phenomenal notes provided, there are 3 major actionable takeaways for your own personal software update this season.
First, leverage the fresh start effect. The human brain craves temporal landmarks. Use this shifting of the season, this specific week, to draw a definitive line in the sand. If you've been procrastinating on your goals, whether that's advancing your career or mastering the nuances of the English language, leave the friction in the past. Use the ritual of clearing your space to generate the momentum for the new you.
Second, engineer your own flow state through intentional constraints. Recognize that discipline, like fasting or setting strict daily rules, is not about punishing yourself.
No, not at all.
It is neuroplasticity in action. It's cognitive training for your prefrontal cortex. You can implement this today.
Just start small.
Exactly. Give yourself a hard constraint. 10 solid minutes of focused reading with the phone completely out of the room. By cutting out the infinite choices, you allow your brain the bandwidth to achieve deep, meaningful focus.
And third, actively practice pattern recognition. As you navigate your week, try to look past the surface level of things. Look for the rich symbolism in the art and culture around you, and appreciate the underlying algorithms driving the technology you interact with.
Everything is connected.
It really is. Realize that whether it's an ancient sage devising a 9-day fasting ritual or a modern engineer writing code in Silicon Valley, they are often trying to solve the exact same puzzle: how to optimize the experience of being alive.
It is a remarkably humbling perspective. We spend so much of our time in absolute awe of the generative capabilities of AI and the processing speeds of our devices. But you, the human being processing these words right now, remain the most intricate, sophisticated, and infinitely capable system ever to exist.
Without a doubt.
Engaging in deep reflection, learning new concepts, questioning your habits, this is simply you taking the driver's seat of your own internal programming.
You are actively writing your next update. It's a powerful framework. As we bring this deep dive to a close, we want to leave you with one final, provocative thought to turn over in your mind today.
Because the best way to ensure these concepts take root is to interrogate how they apply directly to your current reality.
Think about this. We've established that artificial intelligence achieves its maximum power and accuracy only when we apply strict constraints to it. If it has no boundaries, it hallucinates and fails. If it has clear rules, it succeeds brilliantly.
Right.
So take a hard look inward. What are the unwritten rules or invisible psychological constraints that are operating in the background of your mind right this second?
We all have them. Subconscious algorithms dictating what we think we are capable of, running entirely unnoticed.
Precisely. Some of those hidden constraints might be the very bugs causing your system to crash, holding you back from your true potential. But others might be the exact parameters you need to finally focus. If you seized control today, if you consciously deleted the obsolete code, rewrote your own algorithms, and intentionally chose the constraints that serve you, what could your mind achieve tomorrow?
That is the ultimate question for the new season.
A massive thank you for sharing these brilliant notes with us. Keep questioning the code, keep seeking the deeper patterns, and keep upgrading your mind. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Like this video, share with your friends, and subscribe our channel. Thank you.